Hello everyone, welcome to Josh's Boxes. My name is Josh. Today I wanted to make a quick video talking about how to use the Mythic GM Emulator rules. I did a live stream earlier today that I ended up ending prematurely and not posting because I was going to live stream myself learning the Mythic GM Emulator rules. And the reason why I didn't post it is because I couldn't freaking figure it out just by reading the book. Maybe I'm stupid, or maybe the book is not super well laid out, but I couldn't figure out how to use the Mythic GM Emulator rules to like run a scene, like what the Playloop was, on my own, just by reading. And so I stopped the stream. I watched a couple episodes of Me, Myself, and Die by Trevor Duvall. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's one of the ones that inspired me to get into solo RPGs. And I watched a couple of his videos and just wrote down what his process was. I know he's using an older version of Mythic, but I think it's the same. So I watched his videos, took notes on what he did, and then referenced the book afterwards. And that's how I was able to figure out how to actually use this, because I was expecting the rulebook to have like a flow chart of like, first you do this, then this and that, and it doesn't have that. It's got play examples. Maybe I just needed to read the play examples more thoroughly, but I was having a hard time. And so I figured it out now, so I wanted to make a video to explain what I learned. So hopefully I did this right. If not, you can correct me down in the comments below, I guess. But yeah, if you don't know, Mythic GM Emulator is a rule set that lets you play RPGs on your own without a dungeon master, where you run the characters and then you use roll tables and like other random rolls to determine what happens, like do the game master's job. So I've got my character here, Aerolith Darwin. I'm using D&D 5e for this system just because it's the one that I know the best. So I wanted to start nice and easy with a game that I know pretty well. So I got my character Aerolith, and I'm just going to use him as an example to show what the play loop looks like. I've got Mythic GM Emulator open kind of off screen. So the first step is to, let me pick that up so you can see. Here's the steps that we'll be going through if you want to stop and pause. But first, step number one is generate a scene. You can either come up with an idea or you can determine random events. Because I don't know what we're doing, I'm not actually playing, this is just an example. Let's determine a random event. So to determine a random event, you roll on the event focus table, and then the event random event meaning tables. So I'll roll on the event focus table. I got a 7, which is an ambiguous event. Adventure, which means yeah, the adventure has slowed and you are ready for a mystery to pursue. So, yeah, it's ambiguous. Now I'm going to roll on the meaning table to see what that means. So I'm going to roll on action number 1 table, which is 12, bestow, and descriptor number 1. The result is 91. Slowly. Bestow slowly. Ambiguous event. Bestow slowly. So now you've rolled on those tables and you interpret that. So for Aerolith, he's my wood elf fighter. He's looking for a party to join. He's just wandering around the woods looking for a party to join. I would say that bestow slowly means that he gets like a hint at where he can find adventurers. Like maybe he sees a campfire in the woods. now so he's like walking through the woods, he sees a campfire. That's kind of like the scene that we've gone into. I'm expecting him to like investigate the campfire and see if he can track who lit this fire and find out where they went. So next, step 2 is you test the scene based on the chaos factor to see if there is an altered or interrupt scene. So the chaos factor is 5 right now because that's the default. If you don't know, here is the fate chart. This is like the bulk of the system. Is the chaos factor is how much control your character has in this situation. So if you end a scene and the character is in control, then you bump down the chaos factor. If you end a scene and the character is largely not in control, crazy stuff is happening, you bump up the chaos factor. And so that's how the chaos factor is determined. And it also affects your roll charts. So like, I'll show more in a second. But let's test the chaos factor to see if there's an altered or interrupt scene. 10. So my chaos factor is 5. I rolled above it, so that means no change. The scene is going to be about investigating this fire. If I rolled a 5 or lower and it was odd, it would have been an altered scene, meaning that it's still what I expect, but it's different. Like maybe I get there and it's not a fire that I'm investigating, but someone dropped an item that's producing smoke or something like that. And I'm still going to investigate it, but the scene is slightly different than what I thought. The interrupt scene, if I had rolled 5 or lower and it was an even number, 2 or 4 in this case, then it would have been an interrupt scene where I would randomly generate a brand new scene using the steps we did in step 1 with the event focus and the event meanings to see like what happens where the scene is completely different than what I thought it would be. So that's testing chaos factor. Next, you use fate questions to understand the scene and play it out. So that's where the fate chart comes in. So I imagine Aerolith walks up to the fire, and he kneels down to take a better look at it. I'm going to get out some more dice because I'm going to be rolling here soon. Does the fire seem like old or fresh? That's kind of what I'm wondering. So I'm going to phrase my question, my fate question. This is where like normally I would ask the DM, but since I don't have a DM, now I roll to see what the answer is. So I'll ask, is the fire freshly put out? Is this like a recently put out fire? So now I consult the fate chart. I'm going to say first you determine the odds of how likely I think it is. I'm just going to say 50-50 because I don't know. So with 50-50 chaos factor 5, and you've got the main number 50. If you roll 50 or lower, it's a yes. If you roll 51 to 100, it's a no. Then there's a 10, which means if you roll 10 or lower, it's an extreme yes. And 91 or higher means an extreme no. So let's see how this plays out. That's a 79, so that means no. So the fire is old. It's not recent. So if I had rolled, a 50, 11 to 50, it would have been, yep, the fire is fairly recent. If I had rolled 1 to 10, I might have done like, that's an extreme yes. And so I might have gone with the result of like, there's actually still like coals burning. Like this was abandoned minutes ago, And if I'd gotten an extreme no, I would say this is like an old fire. There's like all the ashes blown away. It's just like a charred log. It's going to be really hard to find that. And I'm going to use that to determine the difficulty of what I need to roll to, because now we go to the system, the D&D system, because I want to roll a survival check to see if Aerolith can track them based on this fire. And since it's old, I'm going to make it harder. If it were new, I would make it easier. So let's see how it goes. Survival test. That's a 9 plus 4 is 13. I should have determined the difficulty beforehand. But since it's difficult, I probably would have wanted a 15 or higher. And so a 13 is not going to cut it. Aerolith bends down, he picks his hands through the ash, sees that it's cold, lets it kind of blow in the wind, and thinks to himself, well, I have no idea, this was hours and hours, possibly a few days ago, so I don't even know where to start to look for these people. And he will continue on. And that's just like a very short example of what a scene might look like. So, I asked my fake questions, I played out the scene. Normally there'd be more interesting stuff happening. You might have dialogue or combat or stuff, but whenever the scene is over, you move on to doing something else. The combat is over, the dialogue changes to something else, you move a new location, whatever, like same thing as if a new scene in a movie would start. If something changes in the narrative, you go to a new scene, and then you end with the end of scene bookkeeping. So you edit threads and characters, and you adjust the chaos factor. Editing threads, I might add, the game comes with this list of threads and characters that you can roll on for certain things, or just so you can keep track of them. So I might add to my thread list something like, find out who made this fire. And that's something that Aerolith is pursuing now. And there was no new characters found, and so I won't add any characters. But if he had met new people, I would have added them to the list. If I want them to show up again, if I don't care if they're a throwaway NPC, whatever, I won't add them to the character list. And then threads is like adventure, like goals or things like that will move the story forward. So yeah, add the find who lit this fire, search the vicinity to find who lit the fire, whatever. That would be the thread that we would pursue going forward. And then you generate the next scene. You go back to step 1. And you can either go into it, wandering, or, if you know what's going on in the next scene, then you just go into it. If not, you roll a random event. And yeah, the only other notes I have, these are the notes for ways to do altered scenes. You could just do the next expected thing, tweak one element of it, ask a fake question, roll on the meaning table, or there is a scene adjustment table you can roll on. Interrupt scene is just roll a random new event. And then, yeah, I'm being a little scattered here, but this is the gameplay loop. You generate a scene with either random events, or you just come up with the idea. You test the chaos factor to see if it's altered or interrupted. If it's altered, you change one little aspect of it. If it's interrupt, something completely different happens. If you, if it's neither of those, you just go into the scene as you expected. You ask fake questions to understand the scene. You use the game rules that you're playing with to kind of play it out. And then you do end of scene bookkeeping by editing threads. Oh, and adjusting chaos factor. That's another thing. I would have gone maybe up to chaos factor 6 because Aerolith wasn't really in control of the situation. He was trying to find info but wasn't finding it. So maybe I would go up to chaos factor 6, which at chaos factor 6, now to get a yes result, I would have to roll 65 or lower. So that kind of changes the results based on the likelihood of things. So kind of interesting. Hopefully that makes sense. If you found this helpful, let me know. If I did anything wrong, go ahead and let me know. I'll do one more thing and just go over, I wrote some notes of how to come up with first scenes. Like your very first scene is, 1, come up with an idea. 2, generate random events, just like you would with the step 1 I showed on the other page. Rolling on meaning tables can be helpful in the book. And also ask who, what, where, and why. And that's a good way to generate like the first scene of an adventure. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully it makes it clear how to use the Mythic GM Emulator. Like I said, any questions or corrections, please put them down below. But thanks so much for watching, and until next time, ciao.